Right, so you pulled for the characters you want and you finally built them to the point where you can sort of go, yeah, that's usable enough. Now it's time to start thinking about who their partners in crime would be. What are the other ingredients that you need to concoct this sandwich of destruction that will serve to pulverize everything in your path? In this video, we're gonna take a quick look at how to quickly build a team in Honkai Star Rail and what sort of steps you will need to take in order to calm your ADHD brain down and start actually building a coherent team. With that out of the way, the name's Leafy, and this is Casual Guides to Games, Star Rail Edition. Before we jump into building the team, I want to show you guys two ways a team would normally look like in a default battle setting. You've got one team which has one sustain, two DPS supports, and the main DPS, or you got the other one which is two sustains, preferably it being one healer and one shielder, and one DPS support with the main DPS. People would usually go for the first option since most sustained characters these days can actually do the whole solo sustaining thing, but there's no problem with playing it safe either. Most of the time, it'll just mean that you'd need a little bit more time to clear the battle, but not by a substantial amount to the point where it would really be that big of a difference. When it comes to the roles in the team, it's pretty simple. Your sustains are the ones that will keep you from going.
Another one bites the dust.
Your DPS supports are your steroid injectors, and they usually vary between having one buffer and one debuffer in the team, or just straight up having two buffers. Meanwhile, the DPS are the ones who will be using those steroids and are the ones who deliver the slap to your opponents. Right, we can now move on to the actual team building. So, to start a team, you got two main ways of going about it. Number one is to choose a character and then make a team around them. And number two is to say, screw the character and focus on a particular playstyle instead. If you choose to pick by character, don't be too fussed about it, because picking the character path would eventually lead to a more specific branch of the playstyle path anyways. Due to that, let's begin with the character path first. Essentially, this is where you look around at all the characters that you have, or the ones that you don't have and are planning to pull, and try to build a squad around them. The reason for you choosing any of these characters can literally be for anything you want it to be. Maybe you'd like a big strong man to carry you. Maybe you like it when they have weapons of mass destruction by their side. Or maybe you just have a mommy kink. You go for it, buddy. Whichever reason ends up being yours, you're probably gonna end up making a decision that revolves around choosing which DPS characters you want to use in the team. And the reason being because DPS characters are kind of like babies. You gotta give them a little bit more love and attention because otherwise, they'll just sit there in your team giving you a hard time whilst barely contributing anything of value. So, you kinda have to pander to them in a way. Support characters, on the other hand, are the parents. They are the ones who are gonna raise that baby DPS of yours and turn them into big strong babies. Ones that can slice and dice your opponents into oblivion. However, if you choose to build around a support and you want them to be the star of the show, then do it, I guess. I've seen some crazy shtick before, so at this point, if you're willing to go and take a support for a DPS, then go for it. Freaking psychos. Anyway, once you've picked out your character, you're gonna need to figure out their playstyle. But not in the way where you just follow what paths that they are on. No. Go through their skills and look very closely at their DPS mechanics. Do they consume a lot of skill points? Maybe they're the kind of ones who consumes their HP or your team's HP to get an extra buff out of their damage. Or are they the type who likes to get hit first and then hit their enemies back? Basically, what you're gonna wanna do is to find the supports that can enhance the effectiveness of their respective DPS mechanics. I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's say, Cooler Daniel over here. He uses a duck ton of skill points to reach his max basic attack enhancement. So either you pair him with supports who don't use that many skill points to set up, or you just pair him up with Sparkle and call it a day. Yes, Hoyoverse, 7 skill points with the ability to regenerate 4 of them with just an ult is broken. Second example, Himeko and Ronmei. Himeko's follow-up attack, the Pizza Cutter, is triggered when you've managed to weakness break your enemy to a total of 3 counts. By using Ronmei's weakness break efficiency boost alongside Himeko, it would allow you to faster break your opponents and therefore activate Himeko's pizza cutter more often. The last example that's a bit more unique is Clara and March. March's shield pulls more aggro towards the ally that currently has it. So with you pulling all the aggro towards Clara, Daddy's Varrock would be able to counter them more often. By going through your DPS's skills and your support skills and finding which better synergizes with the other, you'd be able to play mix and match with whoever you think might fit with one another. Honestly, I highly encourage you guys to just try out a combo that you might think would be good instead of immediately looking for a guide for that particular character. Experimenting with what works and what doesn't is kind of what's fun about this particular aspect of the game. So don't be afraid to go out there and try some funny crap. And more importantly, take your time with reading up on what your characters can do so that you'll be able to figure out more ways of playing. Now, let's move on to the second way of doing things, which is to focus on a particular playstyle and just build the team around that playstyle. This time, the playstyle I'm referring to is not the one that I mentioned earlier, which revolves around character mechanics, but this playstyle is the one that revolves around the way of utilizing certain general DPS mechanics, which are normally categorized to hyper carry, follow-up attacks, and DOT damage. Basically, you would want to build a team that optimizes using one of those mechanics instead of caring about which particular characters you'd be using for the team. This is because certain DPS and supports are tailored into specific ways of playing the game. Say you want to build a follow-up attack team, then you'd be looking into DPS characters such as Topaz, Ratio, and Himeko, before looking for supports who are pretty much tailored to play very well alongside them. While we're at it, the most recently released character, Aventurine, is made to be a preservation which links up with activating the follow-up attack of other characters. And the upcoming character or version 2.2, Robin, is also a support who actually can do pretty well as a general DPS support, but she has specific traces that are made to better benefit follow-up attack teams, which basically sort of makes her kind of like the Ronmei for follow-up attacks. That being said, Ronmei herself is pretty much the best general DPS support that you have in-game right now, so whichever type of team you put her into, then she will definitely have a big hand to play within it. The next type of team is the hypercarry teams, where they are almost self-explanatory. You take a particular DPS, or again, if you're a psycho, any character and virtually dedicate the entire team to making that one character deal bollocks amount of damage. Again, this is why supports are king. They can invariably turn any character into a hypercarry and your whole turn cycle will just be a big ploy to make one character shine. On the other hand, the last general DPS mechanic you'll see is DOT or damage over time teams. These are the type of teams that are currently pretty much exclusive to Nihility, where you utilize all the debuffs and status effects that you can apply on the enemy and amplify their effects, forcing them to basically die if they ever want to make a move. It's a way of dealing damage that requires a bit more of a team effort and coordination between all 4 characters. I've talked about this particular playstyle much more extensively in a separate video that I'm gonna put over here. So if you're more interested in figuring out how to use the Cancer of Star Rail, then you might want to check that video out instead. Once you've chosen which particular playstyle you want to go for, it'll all be about figuring out which characters are primed to be playing in that sort of team. Figure out which of their mechanics fit better with one another, and all you need after that is to assemble those DPS and supports alongside a sustain, and your team would pretty much be good to go. I've made a quick list of each particular playstyle and which characters are currently very popular in their respective roles, so feel free to pause and have a look. That's about it when it comes to choosing how you want to build your team. Remember, this is just a quick guide to show you how you want to build your teams in a default setting, meaning it's for content such as normal overworld and domain enemies, memory of chaos, and pure fiction, where the buffs are not super specific to a certain character mechanic and are rather made for the more general form of each playstyle. For teams in simulated universe or event contents, you might be able to get away with much more ridiculous builds and teams such as using 3 sustains and 1 nihility in a nihility swarm run, so you will have to do a bit more digging when it comes to the more unique circumstances. That's all for this quick video. I hope this has helped you at least finally make up your mind on what type of team you would want to build, or maybe it has inspired you to try out other new ones. However it may be, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did and a dislike if you don't, and feel free to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Until the next video, the name's Leafy, and I'll see you all next time. Sayonara.